This is the 2006 thriller horror film Simon Says. Although nearly 20 years have passed since its release, the jungle slasher storyline still feels like it outshines most films of the same type today. Those who have seen it say it's terrifying to the extreme, to the point they wouldn't dare watch it a second time. All right, enough talk. Let's dive into the story. In a sun-dappled college campus with swaying tree shadows, 5 young people are feeling bored and worn down by their routine campus life. During a casual chat, someone brings up a mysterious no-man's land in the countryside, where it's said there are not only hidden, untouched landscapes, but also a chance to find gold, instantly sparking their adventurous spirits. Along the way, they all daydream about what life would be like after striking gold, but the driver, Zach, says he thinks he forgot to bring the map. That means they might soon find themselves lost in the jungle. As Zach keeps driving, they arrive at a cemetery, and while they plan to hang around for a bit and discuss what to do next, 2 elderly people suddenly appear and tell them they can't be making noise here, as it would be disrespectful to the dead. Not wanting anyone to know they are searching for gold, they lie and say they're just here to camp. Riff asks the old man where in the area would be a good place to camp. The old man tells them there's a suitable spot down the mountain to the west, but warns them not to go about 15 kilometers north, because that's where a killer is often seen, and years ago, an entire family camping there was found dead. The killer has never been caught, and he's believed to have murdered around 20 people, leading the locals to call the place cursed. However, Zach doesn't seem to believe it, saying nothing can scare them, and besides, it all happened many years ago. Ashley, on the other hand, feels uneasy and says her parents aren't home, so they might as well just go to her parents' villa, where they can watch shows and swim, which she thinks would be much better than camping. Riff says he's not scared and still wants to check the place out, since it might just be where they'll find what they're after. Riff asks the old man how exactly to get there. Seeing they won't listen, the old man reluctantly gives them directions, telling them to go about 10 kilometers along the left side of the opposite town to find the spot. Vicky then asks curiously why they themselves are safe here. The old man explains they live outside the town and always return home before dark, so they're perfectly safe. Seeing these young people so stubborn, the 2 elderly folks discuss digging a few more graves just in case. Watching the old men walk away, they guess the 2 must have been trying to scare them, since how could such a terrifying thing be real, especially when they are still living here, safe and sound. So, they decide to head to the place the old man mentioned, camp there, and see if they can find any gold. Passing through a gas station in town, Riff tells Zach to refuel while he and the others go inside to buy supplies. But as soon as they walk in, they feel something is off. Not only is the place empty, but the decor is strange, with countless pickaxes hanging from the ceiling. When they've chosen their items and go to pay, Riff calls out for a long time, but no one appears. Vicky says this town feels like a ghost town, not a soul in sight, so they might as well just walk out with the stuff. Just then, a man in black with a dazed look suddenly appears from the back door. He says his name is Simon and tells them everything here is cheap, warning them not to end up in jail over such a small amount of money. Seeing Simon's odd behavior, they can't help but laugh at him. Simon insists he's not an idiot, and as he talks, he suddenly gets excited and runs inside. Kate says they've gone too far and shouldn't speak about someone like that. Before the awkwardness fades, a strange noise comes from the back. A man dressed in white appears suddenly, startling them, and he says his name is Stanley, explaining that the man just now was his brother Simon, who has some mental problems. Seeing this man seems more normal, Riff asks how much for the items and the extra gasoline. Stanley notices Kate's good looks and says they don't need to pay at all. From his expression, it's clear he's taken a liking to Kate. When Riff sees Stanley trying to touch his girlfriend, he gets angry and wants to confront him. Luckily, Zach walks in just then, and seeing the situation getting out of hand, pulls his good friend away. Riff doesn't want to say anything more, tosses some money on the counter, and leaves. As she leaves, Ashley says she's going to report the store's hygiene, but Vicky quickly pulls her away. Once they're gone, they shake off the unpleasant encounter and get back on the road, still chasing their dream of striking it rich. They haven't gone far when they see a man trying to hitch a ride at the bend ahead. The man is tall and handsome, and Vicky suggests picking him up, but the cautious Ashley refuses, saying, "What if he's a killer in disguise?" They think it over and quickly decide to drive off. Watching the van disappear, the hitchhiker shouts something unpleasant after them, then prepares to wait for the next car. But as he steps back, he accidentally triggers a trap set by the killer. Completely unprepared, the man dies in the jungle. By now, the group has arrived at a perfect camping spot, planning to rest for the night and search for gold in the morning. Seeing it's almost dark, Riff says they need to make a fire early for dinner, so he heads out to gather firewood. Vicky says she'll go along to help. Ashley says she can't start a fire or cook, so she decides to go for a run near the woods. Now only Kate and Zach are left at the campsite, and when Zach sees the meat over the fire already burnt, he's frustrated, while Kate says she would never eat something so charred. Zach says there's a gas grill in the van, but he forgot to refill the gas canister, so he plans to go back to the store to get some gas. With that, he leaves Kate alone there. Meanwhile, in the woods, Riff is chopping firewood when Vicky suddenly confesses that she has liked him for a long time. Riff is shocked, but he says he already has a girlfriend, Kate, and politely turns her down. At first, Riff isn't willing, but under Vicky's persistent advances, he eventually gives in. In that moment, they both fall silent, ready to enjoy the moment, when suddenly the sound of footsteps nearby interrupts them. It turns out Ashley, out on her run, has wandered nearby and happens to see Vicky and Riff in a compromising situation. Riff tries to explain, but Ashley says she doesn't want to hear it, as it has nothing to do with her anyway. After that, Riff tells Vicky they shouldn't be doing this, and should keep their distance. Then he heads back to the campsite. When Kate sees her boyfriend return, she angrily demands to know why he took so long, leaving her alone in the frightening jungle. Riff keeps apologizing with sweet words. Seeing them acting affectionate, Vicky decides to go look for Ashley. To cheer up his girlfriend, Riff prepares drinks and food. But what they don't know is that on the other side of the forest, a shadowy figure seems to be watching them. Under Riff's sweet talk, Kate finally forgives him. But coincidentally, Ashley, finishing her first lap, suddenly returns to camp and again sees Riff and Kate being affectionate. Ashley can't help but make a comment about Riff. Hearing this, Kate starts to suspect her boyfriend and Vicky share a secret and angrily turns and walks away. While running, Ashley seems to hear strange sounds around her, thinking it must be animals in the forest, so she pays no attention. But she doesn't realize that the killer has already set his sights on her. It turns out the one who knocks her down is one of the twin brothers from the store, but Ashley doesn't know which one. Seeing Ashley isn't his dream girl, Kate, he feels disappointed. Luckily, Ashley finds an opportunity to kick him and escape, but she doesn't get far before she twists her ankle. When Ashley falls, Stanley uses a contraption to pull her back, then threatens to turn her into a gift for his dream girl. Vicky is still searching for Ashley in the forest, not knowing that Ashley has already been dragged back to Stanley's lair, where he dismembers her. But just as Stanley is halfway through, a small dog runs in and drags off a severed hand. He suspects someone else is camping nearby, so he quickly follows. Sure enough, not far away, a few people are playing a paintball game, waiting for their teammates to arrive. But one of them accidentally steps into a deadly trap and dies instantly. The two others, hearing footsteps, think their teammate has arrived and fire countless paintballs at him. But what they don't know is that the man running toward them is a terrifying killer. When Stanley sees they've attacked him with paintballs, he decides to make sure they don't live to tell the tale. He deliberately waves their flag, luring them to follow. Soon they step into one of his twisted traps and die on the spot. At this moment, Molly finds the small dog nearby, but she notices it chewing on something, and just as she's puzzled, Stanley appears before her. Seeing the hand the dog stole, the furious Stanley stomps the dog to death in front of Molly. Horrified by the scene, she turns and runs back to camp. The three who just died were actually their teammates, and Molly says a deranged man killed her dog and was holding something that looked like a human hand. Hearing this, Garth tries to comfort his girlfriend, but just then, Stanley arrives. When Garth is killed, Clay decides to take on the killer alone. At first, Clay seems to have the upper hand, but when Stanley realizes he's losing, he pulls out a knife and stabs Clay in the back. Seeing both Clay and her boyfriend dead, Molly grabs a can of self-defense spray from the tent and sprays it into Stanley's face, but as she runs, she trips and falls. Stanley sees Molly on the ground, ties her up with a nearby rope, and drags her back to his lair. As night falls, Zach arrives at the daytime store to find it closed. He decides to check the back door. Fortunately, the back door isn't locked, so Zach quickly goes inside and calls out, but no one answers. Seeing a freezer room inside, he decides to check if there's any beer in there. Just as he finds some beer and prepares to leave, he accidentally notices many objects hanging around him, all covered in plastic. Feeling uneasy, Zach casually takes one of the tags to have a look. The horrifying sight makes him fall to the floor in shock. Hanging inside are all dried corpses. Terrified, Zach forces himself to stay focused, knowing he needs evidence to take back, or no one will believe him. He finds many newspapers attached to the corpses and quickly grabs a few to take with him. Just then, he spots the man who was hitchhiking earlier that day, his body in a horrific state, and the sight nearly scares Zach to death as he bolts out of the freezer. With the evidence in hand, Zach's first instinct is to drive back and warn his friends. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Stanley is about to strangle Molly, who he caught at the campsite, when Zach's van approaches. Seeing Zach about to pass through, Stanley decides to give him a surprise. Zach steps out to check, but all he finds is a small dog lying dead on the ground. Noticing a large crack in the windshield makes him wonder, could a dog really cause that much damage? Still, he doesn't dwell on it and continues driving toward the campsite. But with the darkness of night, Zach loses his bearings and gets temporarily lost in the woods. At that moment, Stanley drives a truck to their campsite, and the group asks if he's seen Zach. Stanley says he saw Zach take a different road and that he should be on his way back. Then they ask him if he's seen their friend who went out for a run and hasn't come back since the afternoon. Stanley says he hasn't seen her, but his twin brother Simon might have. Riff asks if Simon's mental state might cause him to harm their friend. Just then, Zach drives back into camp, and Riff asks if he's seen Ashley. Zach says no, and is surprised she isn't there. They notice the van's windshield is cracked, and Riff asks what caused it, to which Zach replies that he hit a dog. Knowing Stanley isn't to be trusted and seeing him agitated, Zach urges him to leave, saying his brother might have gone home already and they still need to look for their missing friend. Once Stanley drives off, Zach pulls out the newspapers he found in the freezer. He explains that the store's Stanley is a killer because he saw many corpses in the freezer, and the newspapers contained something even more disturbing. Stanley had also killed his parents and his twin brother. Zach's research is correct. The seemingly normal shopkeeper is Stanley. He had a twin brother, Simon. They camped with their parents north of the construction site years ago, the cursed ground the old man at the cemetery mentioned. Simon was indeed slow-minded and seemed less sharp, but he had a kind heart. In an accident, Simon attacked him, leading Stanley to kill his brother by mistake. When their father tried to intervene, Stanley killed him too, and in the end, even their mother couldn't escape. After reading the files, everyone believes Stanley is the killer, but it's already too late. He's slashed all their tires with pickaxes. By the time they notice, the van can no longer be driven. Riff tells everyone to grab whatever they can use and head into the forest, both to search for Ashley and to try to escape this nightmare on foot. But they haven't gone far before they hear eerie music playing nearby, and curious, they follow the sound. When they see the source of the sound, they are horrified. It's Ashley, her limbs severed, and her head, hands, and feet arranged to make a doll. As they scream in shock, Stanley ambushes from the side and stabs Riff. Seeing this terrifying scene, the group flees in panic. Riff manages to shove Stanley away, giving himself a chance to run, but he doesn't expect Stanley to activate one of his pickaxe contraptions. At first, Riff dodges them, but with pickaxes flying everywhere, Riff is eventually struck, meeting his end instantly in the woods. While running, Vicky gets separated from Zach and Kate. She stumbles upon the campsite where the paintball players had been earlier, and as she wonders about the place, she notices 2 bags. Curious, Vicky starts unzipping one, and body parts spill out. Inside are the bodies of Clay and Garth. Before she could react, Stanley appeared behind her, grabbed her head, and dragged her toward a large tree nearby. He then wraps a rope around her neck and hoists her into the air. Meanwhile, Zach is running through the forest, shouting about the danger. His voice carries straight to Stanley, who decides to teach him a lesson by activating all of his pickaxe traps. Hearing something's wrong, Zach immediately runs, but the pickaxes come flying toward him. In the chaos, Zach is struck in the thigh, and as he pulls the weapon out, a massive trap falls from above. By sheer luck, he narrowly escapes death once again. Just as he emerged from the woods, Zach saw Kate and was about to call out to her, but Stanley came speeding up from behind in his truck. Sensing danger, Zach quickly hides in the grass, and Stanley, not noticing him, drives straight over to Kate. Seeing Stanley approach, Kate looks terrified, but he tells her that her running companion twisted her ankle and is now resting at his store, asking if she wants to go see her. The wary Kate says he's a killer and that she absolutely doesn't believe him. But Stanley says his brother is the one who's mentally unstable, claiming he's never done anything, and it's all his brother's doing. Kate feels his words make sense and decides to go with him to the store. Hearing that Kate plans to go there, the worried Zach quickly climbs onto the back of the truck to hide. Not far into the drive, Stanley shows his true nature, locking Kate in with a mechanism inside the truck. Just as he's feeling pleased with himself, he spots Zach in the back. Wanting to teach them both a lesson, Stanley speeds up along the mountain road, jolting them so hard they almost throw up. As they near their destination, Stanley punches Kate unconscious. He then takes her back to the site where he had killed his parents, tying her hands to a table. To indulge his twisted desires, Stanley forces Kate to eat moldy bread in front of his parents' corpses, threatening to kill her if she refuses. At that moment, a figure in a ghillie suit appears, interrupting them. Seeing the silhouette, Stanley calls out, thinking it looks like his brother Simon. But Simon had already been killed by him long ago. So who could this person really be? To test it, Stanley says Simon loves hot dogs and tells the figure to fetch one from his box. It turns out the person is actually Zach, who had taken the costume from Stanley's truck to rescue Kate. He had hoped to fool Stanley, but his plan is exposed. After catching Zach, Stanley ties him to a dead tree. Realizing Zach came to save her, Kate begs Stanley to let him go, promising to do whatever he wants. But the deranged man ignores her, lighting a fire and burning Zach alive. With her companions dying one by one, Kate finally understands that she can only rely on herself to survive. She uses Stanley's lust for her as a chance to find an opening. He quickly managed to control the kitchen knife Kate was holding. Before Stanley can react, Kate grabs a wooden plank from the ground and smashes it hard against him, then seizes the moment to run into the forest. But Stanley is not someone who can be shaken off so easily, and knowing the terrain, he quickly gets ahead of Kate. He tries to ambush Kate, but instead, one of his own flying pickaxes cuts his arm. Taking advantage of Stanley's injury, Kate ran to the broken table, grabbed the kitchen knife again, and hid before Stanley could reach her. When Stanley reaches the spot, Kate is nowhere in sight. She hides behind Zach's corpse.
I can't block it!
And when Stanley is caught off guard, she strikes and knocks him to the ground. Strangely, as she turns away for a moment, Stanley's body vanishes from sight. Time passes, and more than half a year later, a group of young people arrive at Stanley's store to buy supplies. Stanley, wearing clothes with the name Simon on them, comes out to meet them. Seeing the way he acts, they find this Simon strange and promptly ask him where there's a good place to camp. Stanley told them about the previous campsite location and then turned back into the house. Watching through the window as the group leaves, he opens a trapdoor and tells Kate to stay home and take care of the child because he's going out to hunt more prey. And that is where the story ends.